Well, hello everybody, and once again, welcome back to another episode of Six Siege the Board Game Quick Tips, Episode 2, and today I have 4 new quick tips for you guys. Once again, this series is supposed to be just a nice, short, little bite-sized video series with just some quick little tips that you can use immediately to improve your games a ton of Six Siege. And so right here, I've got the border map set up here, and I'm going to go ahead and get into the 4 tips that I have for you today. And the first tip that I have for you today is very simple, and that is that you should prepare defense setups outside of the game. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when you are the defense team in Rainbow Six Siege, you have 15 minutes. Let's see, where is you got 15 minutes to do a setup with a standard timer. Now, that seems like a lot of time, but when you're kind of putting together a setup, or especially in a scenario like you just saw with our most recent gameplay video on Coastline, putting together a setup on a map that you don't know, or a game mode that you haven't played, or with characters that you haven't played before, 15 minutes can go by really quick. And oftentimes with that 15-minute timer, you're going to make a lot of mistakes in your setup that the attacker can capitalize on really easily. So this tip is very simple. In your free time, your off time, when you're not playing the game, open up the TTS module, or hopefully eventually pull out the boards of the physical game and look down and actually spend some time, more time than 15 minutes, and actually plan setups for defense ahead of time. You can actually see my defense game improve a little bit over the last couple weeks, especially in the tournament on Clubhouse. During the tournament, what I did was I actually spent the day leading up to the tournament opening up Clubhouse, and I spent about an hour or two really refining my hostage defense setup that I used, and I believe it was my game against Bomber, and I should have played defense first, so I could have played defense twice, because I had 2 defense setups, and I had won with defense pretty easily, I thought, when I prepared my defense ahead of time. And the reason you would do this is just because when you don't have the pressure of the timer in the back of your mind, you can really take your time to carefully craft not just the team composition, but exactly how you want to set up the site to be an airtight defense for those first 2 rounds. Really what you want to try and do is eliminate any first round mistakes that attackers can use to get in and really take control of the map within the first round. What you really want to do is you want to be able to have enough time to really cover all angles and all lines, and that way you have a good defense setup that actually forces the attacker to spend time to try and get into the site, so that you can kind of adapt to them better. So not really an example that I can pull up on here on what you should do. The tip really is just use time outside of the game to really hone and set up defenses ahead of time. Sometimes, you can take a screenshot or take a picture of your setup so you can have it ready, or, just memorize it. But that's the first tip. Use time outside of the game to set up your defenses, so that way you don't have to worry about this 15-minute timer, and you don't have to worry about mistakes from said timer while setting up as the defense. And I guarantee you, your defense games will improve so much when you just spend time looking around the maps and the rooms and calculating lines of sight and piecing together your doors and gadgets and pieces and whatnot. And just as an extension of that, maybe send pictures over to people that friends or other people that you can play the game, and get their feedback on the setup. Maybe send it to them and ask, hey, how would you attack this map? So that way you can kind of refine it even more. All right, so that's quick tip number 1. The next quick tip is when you are playing, oftentimes a great way that you can get the jump on someone, typically as maybe the defender when you are the attacking player, is you can line up an attacker with Overwatch and have somebody, those pieces link together, it's weird, and have a different operator open up that doorway so that the person in Overwatch doesn't have to do anything and doesn't take a repost risk. So what do I mean by that? All right, so let's say in this scenario right here, we've got Capital. Maybe he's overwatching into this room right here on border, right? He's got a pretty good angle there. Maybe this is where an objective is. And what a lot of people do is maybe, okay, well, I want to get into this room and I have Capital right here, so I'm just going to, let's say, they've got a defender right here. I'm just going to activate Capital, and I'm going to blow this wall, and maybe soak a repost or check to see if there's a hidden token there. When in actuality, what a better move would be in this scenario is, instead of activating the operator who could potentially take a repost from somebody, is you can actually use a different operator. So for instance, in this scenario, instead of using Capital to break down this door and try and shoot at Frost, we could have Blackbeard use the destroy action on this space, open it up, and then this piece would have line of sight to any decoy tokens and can flip them over, or it can just be in line of sight of an enemy operator without taking a repost, which is in a much better position. And then you can do, whatever else you want to do with Blackbeard. But basically what this means is sometimes you can use other operators to set up your secondary operators in a better position. So instead of just thinking about how do I get this one operator into here this turn, think about how can I use my other operators to help the current operator's activation? How can I use them to get them in a better position? So in this scenario, we don't have to activate Capital, destroy something, and re-overwatch. We can just leave Capital right there, open up this wall, consider our options, and also hold the defender's pieces in this room. They can't really move without suffering a repost. And now we have the defense pinned, and we have more options on what we want to do with Capital later. And he's not going to take a repost because, again, this was the operator that used the action, and so Frost is not going to be able to get a shoot action. So line up operators in line of sight, and then use another operator to break down doors or walls in order to get this scenario right here, where you basically could maybe get some, information. Some people think for free. I don't think so, but it's a much better way to use tactics and use positioning to set up better positions. All right, that's quick tip number 2. Quick tip number 3 today is something that, it is part of the game, but it's something that oftentimes you can forget while you're playing, and that's you can use grenades to destroy utility as well as using them for damage. So let's say you have a scenario where, like right here, you're trying to break into this room, right? And you've only got one operator to go, and you want to get into this room. The problem is you need to destroy either a barricade or a door, and there's also utility like a camera or an enemy gadget in there. So you use the destroy action on the wall, right? Oh, but now you can't use the destroy action on this camera. So sometimes, it's just easy to think, well, I guess I got to wait another round in order to be able to take this camera. But actually, something that you can do is that you can use, frag grenades as the attacker to be able to destroy a defender utility. So, for instance, with Capital, you could, destroy this wall, and then you could... Wait, does Capital even have orange destruction? I don't know. Just pretend he has orange destruction. He can destroy this wall, and then, instead of going into the room, he can use a frag grenade and target this space, and he'll be able to destroy those gadgets as well. Basically, you can use grenades and think about them as a second destroy action, in addition to the actual destroy action you have. This way, you can do more than one destroy, because sometimes you just get tunnel vision. You think, oh well, I don't have enough actions to do destroys. But if you think that, okay, well, I can wait another turn to get into the room, then I can use a regular destroy action and a utility action, a tactical inventory action, to go ahead and use that destroy. So you can often think about that when you are playing the game. And the cool thing about grenades too is that they can go through overlays, so you don't need line of sight to something, especially if you're destroying something like a camera, which are always visible. You can always chuck a grenade to be able to destroy enemy utility. And because grenades also can do the yellow destroy on adjacent things, you might be able to destroy a lot of enemy gadgets all at once just from one frag grenade. So that's quick tip number 3. Think about frag grenades not just in terms of damage dealing capacity, but also think about them in terms of utility clearal and denial, and that's actually a pretty good way to use them. In my most recent Coastline game, I actually used a frag grenade with Flores, I believe, so I could destroy a barricade and destroy a camera, allowing Capital to move in and take a shot at Castle, and I think it worked out pretty well in that game. So that's quick tip number 3. And then finally, quick tip number 4, which is kind of an extension of one of the tips in the first quick tips episode. And that's how, when I talked about how you could overwatch entryway tokens with characters who had 4 or more unblockable dice on short range, an extension of that is you want to make sure that you are not overwatching entryway spaces with lightweight tokens. And lightweight is people who have only 4 health. Now, why is this? Well, because you basically have 2 scenarios when you overwatch something with a lightweight. If someone contests something and they're, following our advice by using Buck or using Sledge to contest that token, they're going to be rolling 3 to 4 orange to red dice, and which means their likelihood of getting 5 to 6 is already pretty high. And if you only have 4 health, you're pretty much screwed if you decide to contest that token if they're rolling that many dice. So 4 health can just not really withstand an attack from these types of operators. And if the attacker knows what they're doing, they'll use these types of operators to dispute entryway tokens. So secondly, if you can't even dispute the Overwatch token because you know your operator is too weak, then probably you're just going to cede the challenge anyway, and you're going to give the token to them. So basically, this quick tip is pretty easy. Just avoid disputing or overwatching an entryway token with lightweights anyway. anyways, because basically that's a wasted action. Either they're going to shoot you with their multiple dice, or they're going to get it because you have to seed it because you're too scared of your operator dying anyway. So make sure you're disputing or overwatching tokens, this goes for both attack and defense, with either medium weights or with heavy weights, because those are the people who can withstand an attack at heavy cover when disputing an entryway token. Whereas with, you know, operators like Sledge and Buck, and I know there are some defenders who are really good at this as well, you just want to make sure that you're not running that risk and that you're not basically wasting an Overwatch action, and that you can maybe try and do something else with one of your operators. Okay guys, so that's it for today's episode of 6 Siege the Board Game Quick Tips. I hope these have been very helpful for you, and I hope you can use these to immediately start improving your games of 6 Siege the Board Game. Until next week, see ya.